Well, what's going on YouTube? This video is going to be pretty quick, and I hope it's very informational for you people out there that are looking to change the water control valve and the thermostat on the 4th generation Altima. This in my case is a 2008 Altima. What you're looking at right now is the coolant outlet. Now there's a video on YouTube already on how to change this, but the gentleman in the video was kind of unclear on what to take apart to get to this valve, and was also unclear on how to get to the front thermostat. This right here is where the water control valve is going to be located. When we take off the basically, this, like I said, this is the coolant outlet. When we take off this outlet, it's going to be inside of this manifold outlet. All of the bolts and the two nuts that I'm going to be taking off, and I'll explain all that later, are all going to be 12 millimeters. There are 4 on this manifold right here, or outlet, and there are 2 located on the inlet valve right there. Okay, so I realize that can be a little confusing, starting just from in that area and having everything already taken apart. So I went ahead and I put some things back together to start from the beginning, just to give everyone a clear understanding of what to take apart first. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to drain the coolant out of your radiator, and most cars have a drain plug right below the radiator. On this Altima is located on the passenger side, and if you go under the radiator and you look for the mount hole for the radiator on the passenger side, right behind it is the drain plug. Right there where I'm pointing at, it is a Phillips head. I'm not sure what number that is, but do not use a small one. Make sure it is the exact size, because it's plastic and you don't want to strip it, and you want to make sure that it's seated correctly in there, all the way in there, so you do not strip it. Once you release that, you will drain all the radiator, the coolant, the radiator fluid, and make sure you also unscrew the radiator cap so that you have ventilation and it drains a lot quicker than what it's showing on my video. Also make sure that you collect the plastic plug, or screw in my case, which is a drain plug, and you put it in a safe area so you do not lose it, because you do not want to lose that part. Although I'm sure you can pick a part up at the local auto store, save yourself some money and some time. Obviously wait for the radiator to drain properly so you don't get coolant all over the place when you take the hoses and everything apart. Okay, so the first part we're going to go ahead and change is the water control valve, and that's located on the side of the engine on the coolant outlet. And as I mentioned already, the thermostat is in the front right here, right below the heat shield. There's 2 screws holding that in, 2 bolts. Now during this video I'm probably going to be cutting in between the live audio and my actual voiceover recordings, just to make sure that I'm being clear on everything. I was talking while I was working, but some things I may not have been clear about, so I want to be as clear as I can be with everybody. I also will be linking the video that I was referring to earlier with the gentleman, and all the tools that I used in this video in the description. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove this air duct right here. So there's 2 screws on this right here. See if you guys can see what I'm talking about. Gotta pull this camera out. Yeah, so there's 2 screws on this end, 1 on this one, and 1 on this one. And when you take those out, this is gonna come out easy, just like that. It will just come out. Just 2 screws hold this in. And then for this back air duct right here, this is has the filter and everything, the air filter thing. There's a plug right here that I already have unplugged. It's on top, you unplug it. It has 2 plastic clips that are going into the air duct. You have to unclip that so you can take this out. And you guys probably won't have this, or someone will. This is just the fuse for the subwoofer. So after you do that, there's 1 more screw behind the behind the air duct right here. Just 1 screw. You can literally look over and see it. I can't really show you, it's kind of hard, but it's really behind this air duct. It's right on the driver's side behind it, right in the rear well. And I also forgot to mention this back hose clamp right here. So yeah, once you do that, you'll take this out. It has 2 clips on this thing, so when you unscrew it, you're gonna have to give it a little bit of pull. It'll come right loose. See? And then it's a little bit of a wrestling job to get this air duct out. You have to do a little bit of a wiggle
so it comes out and everything. There's some screws on the side of here that kind of hold it from getting out, and they you can tell because they cut a groove in this. That's where the bolt goes. They cut a groove in it just so it can fit around the screws on the side right there. So it's a little bit of a tight squeeze for this thing. Okay, so once you get that out, you have the water control. This is the inlet or the outlet. Either one. This is the big one. This is the one that has the water control valve right here. It has an extra large pipe, which is the radiator hose. It has about a large, a medium, and a small. So there's 4 pipes total on it. So you're gonna disconnect this electrical piece up top right here. And they're a little tough. Don't yank on the wires. There you go. You use 2 hands for that one, just to make sure I don't yank on the wire. Tuck that away. And you have the small, the medium, the large, and the extra large. We're gonna take those off right now. And I got myself some hose pliers. You can use some regular pliers too if these don't work. I switch in between them. I catch myself switching in between hose pliers and regular pliers. I already took these hoses off, so they're easy to come off right now, but they're gonna be a little tough when you first take them off after a while because they've been sealed on there and they might have a bunch of like radiator crust or something on them.
Okay, so I went ahead and I sped this part up a little bit just to make the video as short as possible. I'm just taking off those 4 hoses, like I said, the extra large, the large, the medium, and the small. You're going to see me take these off pretty fast because I had taken them off prior to recording, and I threw them back on just to show you guys this whole process of changing this part. You might have to pull pretty hard. Just don't yank and stretch the hose out and rip it, but you're going to have to pull pretty hard and maybe use like a flathead screwdriver to kind of get in there and pry it loose a little bit. And then while you're prying, just kind of wiggle it and just keep going. It might feel like it's not coming off, but trust me guys, you'll get it off. Just be patient and keep working at it, and you'll get all 4 of them off pretty fast.
See, this one right here got stuck on it. There we go. That one was a little tough. Okay, so now to get to this outlet. So basically, there's 4 fasteners on this. 4 fasteners. There's 2 bolts and 2 nuts. The nuts are the top one and the one pointing towards the bumper. Those are nuts. They're all the same size though. They're all 12 millimeters. And the one in the back and on the bottom, which is behind this screw, which is another 12 millimeter, is a bolt. Now before we get to unscrew those 4 bolts, those 4 fasteners, the 2 nuts and 2 bolts, we have to unscrew 2 more bolts off this heater pipe right here. This metal pipe is a heater pipe. So you're gonna unscrew this bolt right here, which is holding the heater pipe onto the valve.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling this a valve, but it is really the coolant outlet. The water valve, which I'm referring to, is actually inside of this coolant outlet. Is what we're trying to change. So I don't mean to confuse you. That is actually the coolant outlet, not the valve.
There's no way we can even take this valve off or even get to the bottom screw without taking this heater pipe off. So there's 2 screws on the heater pipe. There's one right here, and there's one more. It's hard to show you. I'm just gonna talk right now, but I'll show you when I get a chance. There's one more in the front of the heater pipe towards the front of the motor, right next to the bottom inlet valve. Like I said, we're gonna change. There's the heater pipe right here, the front, and below the heater pipe is the screw. So there's 2 screws. It might sound confusing. There's just 2. It's simple. And the only thing that's hard about it is you might have to use a deep socket to get to them. So it's 2 12s. I'm gonna go ahead and take that one off right there, and then I'll switch the camera and try to show you the best I can to take the front one off. Okay, for this one, simple. Just a 12, okay? I'm using a regular. I'll put my tools right here that I'm using for this job right here, okay? I'm using literally this right here. A ratchet, my adapter in case I have to reach a little further, my deep socket, and this for 2 reasons, like I said, to reach the bolts that are a little further too. And because sometimes this together is too long, as you can see. So I just needed something a little shorter, so I use a deep socket. The deep socket is for the top bolt right here and the front bolt because they're bolts, and because they're nuts and they're not bolts. They're on the thread and they're not threaded to go into it. So you have to use the deep socket to reach it so you don't strip it. You don't want to be rolling your socket on the end of a nut because then you're just gonna make the front part round and you're gonna strip it. And if I'm just telling everybody everything they already know, then I'm sorry, but this is for someone that has no idea what they're pretty much doing on this. for the most part. So you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna put the 12 on. Remember, lefty loosey, okay?
And as soon as I'm done taking off this bolt from the side of the heater pipe, I'm going to move the camera around and position it the best I can to try to show you guys how I take off the front bolt as well.
Okay guys, this is the best position I can get for the without me having to hold the camera and do all that extra stuff, and I have no one to help me. So this right here, engine cover, obviously. This right here, heat plate. And when you move over, you got the wires that are running into the engine cover, just to give you an idea where we're at. And this right here is part of the heat pipe. This is what it goes into. This right here, behind this circle little washer thing that's shaped like that, is the heat pipe. So that's what you're gonna pull out. I pulled out the bolt on the side of it already, on the side right here. And we're just gonna pull out the one other bolt that's below it. You can't see it on this camera, but I promise you, if you stuck your hand right here below the heat pipe, excuse me, right here, look at my fingers at this finger, you stick it right below the heat pipe right there, you will feel the bolt. The only thing I have to tell you is that this radiator hose, the clamp might be in the way, so you might have to just clamp it and scoot it over. Just clamp it, squeeze it together and rotate it to the side. Mine was in the way. It just depends how they built your car in the factory, or if someone replaced it and left it in the way. So if everything's good, you're gonna grab your socket wrench and your extendable, because I think this is what I use this one for. I don't really think I use this extendable too much, but I think this is the situation that I used it for. And I used this to get to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on there.
I do want to take this time while I'm fast forwarding through this to say that you're probably going to have to use a breaker bar on all these bolts, and if not all the bolts, more than half the bolts, you're going to be using a breaker bar on these. So you're not going to see me use it, like I said, because I put everything back together for you guys, but more than likely you're going to have to use a breaker bar yourselves.
And right now I'm just watching it come out. I'm holding the screw to make sure it doesn't fall. If it did fall, honestly, it would just fall to the floor. There's really nothing to catch it. But you never want to let that happen. Okay. There's two. They're both the same size. They're both the same size. They come out of the heater pipe, these two bolts. Make sure you don't mix your bolts up. They're all the same size as far as the nut, but they're not the same length. So don't mix them up. And now that I have the bolts undone, I can pull this heater pipe out, because you have to get this heater pipe out of this block right here so you can scoot it out of the way. When I first did this felt like I was gonna break it, guys, okay? Just wiggle and pull towards the front of the car and wiggle it as you're doing it. You're not going to break it. Just wiggle and pull towards the front of the car. It's gonna be super tough. I don't know how it's gonna be this time. See, it's easy for me this time. But that was not that easy. Everything's gonna be easy for me right now because the car is still cold and I haven't drove it from when I took it apart.
Now, I forgot to mention, before you pull the heater pipe out of the engine area, you're going to want to disconnect this electrical harness off of the metal clamp on the side of the heater pipe. I'm going to spin the camera around and you'll see it later. It's going to be the tab that I bend, but you're going to want to disconnect that electrical piece before you pull out the heater pipe.
Okay, so I pulled it out and I got it right there, right? I pulled it out of the block right here. And now I'm just going to position it to get it out of the way. And what I did was I bent this.
Now that little metal tab thing I just bent is the part that holds the electrical harness from dangling, and it's the part that I was explaining earlier.
I bent this to get this around this inlet valve, the extra large one, because otherwise it's pretty much caught between the transmission stick and the valve, so it's hard to get it out. And I bent that and I was able to slip it out, and now I have this out of the way. It's just sitting off to the side. All you have to do is leave it right there. And now I'm gonna get the camera set up so I can show you how to take this thing off. Okay, so remember on this valve, we have 4 fasteners, 2 bolts and 2 screws. Okay, let's take off the top one right now. Pretty much line it up almost with the screw that's in the heater pipe that goes through the valve, and you'll find it. Just wiggle your hands around there. I mean, put your hands around there, your fingers, wiggle them around there till you feel it, and then guide the ratchet onto it.
Now the bottom bolt can be a little tricky just because you can't see down there and you're just using your hands to feel it, but once you get the socket around it, and I'm using the deep socket for this of course, I use it on all 4 of these. Once you get the socket around it and break it, you're good. So the first bolt I took off, or fastener I took off, was a nut, and that was the front one. Then I took off the top one, which was another nut. Then I took off the back one, which was the actual bolt stud. And the bottom one, which I was talking about earlier, which is a little tricky, I broke it loose and I took it off by hand. And that was another stud. So it's a total of 4 fasteners, 2 nuts, and 2 bolts.
So this is what it's gonna look like. Basically, when you pull it out, this is the part. It's not gonna be as clean as mine if your car has been put through some miles, because I took this off earlier, like I said, and I cleaned it. There's a bunch of crust all over these ends. You're gonna wanna clean just the surface off. See? Just that surface. Get it nice and clean. I used a Dremel when I did it.
You're also going to want to take this time to go ahead and take a look at the gasket and make sure you can reuse it. In most cases, it can be something that can be reused, and in my case, it was too.
So if you're going to take this out, it just comes out. It'll just come out easy. I don't want to take this out because I already took it out, and I don't feel like putting it back in. It's easy. It just pops out, okay? I use pliers. I don't want to, this is a brand new one, so I don't want to use pliers on it. The old one I used pliers on, and I just kind of, when I pulled it out, I put pliers and I twisted it just a little bit when I was pulling, and it just broke free. The rubber ring did stay in there when I took this one out, and all I did was get like a flathead screwdriver, and I stuck it in there, and I just pried it out with the flathead screwdriver. It just came out easy. So if you pull this out and the rubber ring stays, don't be scared. It'll come right back out. Just make sure you clean the inside.
Now I just wanted to pause this to make sure that when I say the inside, I'm not referring to the actual inside of that outlet. I'm just referring to the inside area of where the rubber gasket ring would sit when you pull it out, to just clean that surface area right there.
Like I said, I'm not taking this out just because I already did, and I don't want to take it out the way I took it out the first time because I could damage it. If you can see, there's an arrow right there and a hole. That arrow is telling you that this has to be, the arrow has to be pointing up. Don't worry about this thing pointing up, this whatever, because on the other one, this one's crooked sideways. This little bar band is sideways. So right here has the arrow pointing up in the hole right there. So that's where you want to position it, just like that, and you want to put it back just like that. Right back onto there. Right back onto there, okay? And don't forget to put the gasket on if you took it off. That's it for that. I will pause the video, and then when I start working on that one, I will show you. Okay guys, so this is going to be how to remove the thermostat parts right there. Literally right when I'm putting my part on. The bolt's right there, top bolt, and the bottom bolt's right below right here. If you can't see, that's only because the camera is bad at picking up this light right here. But if you were here with me right now, you'll be able to see every single thing I just pointed at. I'll try to set that in there to maybe help a little bit. Okay, so hopefully that helps, guys. So like I said, this is the thermostat right here. The top bolt and the bottom bolt is right there. And we're gonna go ahead and disconnect this thing right now. And if I bump the camera, excuse me. You guys are in my way right now. This is the easiest one to change. Honestly, guys, this is the easiest one to change. It's just right here. It fell out. Okay. It's usually stuck to the valve because mine was caked in there, and I had to break it free. Anyways, let me pull it up. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera. That right there, down there, what you're kind of seeing, I think, yeah, what you're seeing right here is the housing, I believe, for this thermostat. I put it in wrong, I guess, and I put it in on this thing because when the other one came out, it was stuck to this like that. So when I put it in like that. But you're supposed to push it into this housing actually, and then put that pipe thing back on, the cap, the inlet valve. So you take that, and there's no gasket on this thing at all. There's absolutely no gasket. So this is the same situation with this one. Doesn't the camera focus? You see how it says top? Don't follow this bar. I was thinking like the bar had to be like this at the top or something. I don't know why this is what I was thinking. This says top and there's an arrow on it. It's right next to the bleeder hole. This one has like a little screw thing in it. The other one doesn't, just so you know. So the actual thermostat has this bleeder screw thing. And the other one just has a hole with the bleeder hole. This one's a hole with the, like I said, with a little gadget screw in there. There's a arrow right there telling you how to point it up, and that's the top, obviously. So I'm going to put it in, and you put it in like this. This is how you put it in against the motor. This spring goes inside the motor. And
now I know this is pretty late in the video to mention this, but I don't have any torque specs for anyone, and I was looking all over the internet before I did this procedure, and I could not find any torque specs for this specific vehicle and model and everything. I found one for a Nissan Maxima, said 80 foot-pounds. That seemed a little much to me. I actually tried to use one of my torque wrenches on one of the screws and go for 80 foot-pounds, and I just kept tightening, and I didn't feel comfortable to go for the 80 foot-pound mark. So I probably stopped around 60 or so. I didn't even measure it. But if I was to guess, I'd say I went 60 or so foot-pounds on it. Don't quote that and do exactly 60 foot-pounds on the screw. But these screws are on pretty tough because I used a breaker bar on half these screws, if not all of them, like I said. So you're probably going to want to tighten these ones down as tight as you can go, you know, and then just give them a really good tightening. Don't over tighten them or you want, like, you're going to break off the nut, but definitely go as tight as you can go. And then if you decided to do it that way like I did, just make sure that when you're done with everything, you put everything back together, that you run the car and you check for leaks. And do not drive the car, of course. If it's leaking, just go back and tighten everything back up and you'll get it.
alright guys, so I showed you how to change the water inlet valve and the the thermostat valve for a thermostat. So now you know what to do on both those. I'm sorry if it was a little confusing. I tried my best to show you guys what I was doing and how I was doing it and tell you guys everything. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them to me. I'll be glad to answer anything that I might have confused you about during this video. Remember to put back your air box and your air duct and all that. And remember to fill your car with 50-50 coolant. If it's an Altima like mine, 50-50.
Okay guys, I'm sorry, I got rushed by my fiance and I wasn't able to actually record the whole process right here. Basically what you want to do is you're going to want to get a funnel like the one I have here. I'll have it in the description, or if you have a funnel yourself. And you're just going to want to fill the car back up with the coolant. I'm using water because I flushed my vehicle at this time, but if you're not flushing, then you're just going to fill it back up with the coolant, the 50-50, like I said, if your car is using 50-50. And you're going to make sure you burp your engine, okay? So when you fill it up and you pretty much have the funnel filled with water where it seems like the system is not taking any more coolant, you're going to want to run the engine and let it burp, and you're going to see bubbles come up basically from the funnel area. This is going to be burping basically, as if, you know, the engine's burping, and it's basically letting all the air out of the engine that got trapped in there when you filled it back up with the 50-50. Let it run for about a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, rev the engine a little bit, and it'll start making the system burp faster. And then when you're done with that, you'll just go ahead, and if you have the Lysol 50-50 fill-free funnel like I have, you'll plug it back up, or something like that. You'll plug it back up, and you can dump the rest of the coolant back into the coolant bottle, or you can dump it into the coolant reserve tank if it's not full already. And if I'm unclear or confusing at all about this situation at the end right here about how to burp the system and refill it completely, definitely refer online and double check and make sure you're comfortable with it. Or you can refer to the video that I link, because that at the end he definitely explains that part pretty good. I'm sorry I couldn't explain this better and get it all on a video. I was rushed because I had to do some other things. But basically how you're going to refill it right here is whatever you took out in that pan when you drained it, you're going to put back. So you're for sure going to put about a gallon back, so you can be safe about putting a gallon in. And then from there, you're going to take whatever you have in that pan over there, and you're going to dump it into the gallon jug. And you're going to see that you took a gallon out, move that to the side, okay, and then you're going to dump some, and you're going to measure the rest of that pan into another gallon jug to see how much more you need to add. If I'm confusing it all, like I said, refer to the link in the video or the internet on how to refill your cooling system. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video helps somebody out there. Alright YouTube, until next time.